Hi kids, Coach Jim here for Inland Chess Academy. Hope you're all doing well in this strange time of online-only chess. Some of you may remember me from the chess camps run by Inland Chess Academy. Some of you may have seen me at the scholastic tournaments in the area. I'm the guy doing the post-game analysis and handing out raffle tickets. Okay, so today we're going to do a very quick and introductory lesson on tactical versus positional. What's the difference? What are the similarities, if any? And what do we really mean by positional move or positional play? A lot of you have no idea, and I'll explain that in a minute why that may be the case. Let's look at position 1. Okay. This is a typical scholastic game. I see it a lot. I call this the main line of the scholastic gambit. Black's idea is twofold. The first phase is give away all your pieces. Second phase, hope for a stalemate. And White's goal is to get as many queens as he can. It's like 2 queens isn't enough. White apparently doesn't think he has enough mating material and needs more queens. See the 3 pawns about to become queens? The trouble with that strategy is Black will have an easier time getting a stalemate with all those queens on the board. All the squares will be covered. Okay, so this is not the way to play chess, not really. White vacuum cleans up all Black's pieces, and then only then does he think about checkmating. Positional play is much more subtle than eating all your opponent's pieces and checkmating them. So we will take a look at that, and we will take a look at also tactical, which is probably something most of you will be familiar with. Okay, let's look at the first. There are different types of tactical maneuvers. Okay. All right, so for the first tactic we will look at is a checkmate tactic. Very simple. That's the one you're most familiar with probably, and let's just see quickly. Very simple checkmate. So White's playing tricky. Okay, could obviously take here, but he goes for tricks, and this is a very sharp line, of course, and involving a major trap, and Black falls for it. So here, you might say White just dropped his queen, but no. Queen, if he takes the queen, this is the checkmate, the tactic part, sacrificing material. And so check and mate. So very simple checkmate tactic. That's one type of tactic. Another type of tactic is, this is an interesting one. This one here we call a deflection tactic. White wants to obviously play Queen A6, or King A6, sorry, and checkmate Black. Trouble is he's in check. Well, okay, so can't we just go here and checkmate Black? Well, then Black has a million checks. So it doesn't look like White's going to be able to checkmate that way. So that's the goal, King A6 and then mate. But how to avoid all the checks, right? Well, there's this very cool deflection move. Sacrificing the queen, and Black takes it. There's really nothing else to do. So takes, and now king here, and notice something interesting. Black has no checks, except for, let's say, Queen A5, desperation. And if takes, this still wins. Only possible move would be this, and then we take here. And I don't think Black can stop both those pawns. So, and of course, the other check would be here, and it amounts to the same thing. Okay then. There it is. So, all he can do is take the pawn. And now white wins with this move. This check, of course, doesn't work. Just king b8. But c7, and now he's threatening b7 check. Or c8 queen, leading to mate. So let's say he takes the pawn. Then check as mate. If he goes queen here, then there's the mate there, right? So check that. So that's an interesting little spectacular move, in fact. Deflection. Okay. What are some other tactics? Let's look at okay, here's a simple tactic. The opening is kind of nonsensical here. Pay no attention to that opening. But here's the position. So that's the okay. Here's the tactic right now. This position here. White has a sacrifice that wins material more than he sacrifices. There it is. And of course, if queen takes, then you win the queen. Simple tactic. All right. What's the next tactic? Okay, here's an interesting one. This is I call it setting a trap, but you can also outfox yourself sometimes. White plays this move here, setting a devious trap. If black takes en passant, and white might say, maybe black doesn't remember en passant. And on the scholastic level, that can happen. And so white sets a trap and goes, well, if he takes the pawn, he forks my rook and knight. Winning move, right? But that, of course, is a losing move because the queen hangs. It's one of the interesting things about en passant is it's the only time two pieces disappear from a rank at the same time. And black might think that he can take the pawn and there's still going to be something in the way. Not true. The trouble with this d4 move for white is it's not a good move. White should just play here and he's better. But if he goes here and black doesn't fall for the trap, and just plays something like rook f7 protecting the pawn, now black is slightly better. So don't just, this is cheapo chess. Don't just make a move hoping your opponent will fall for it. Unless it's a good move anyway. It's a good move even if your opponent doesn't fall for it, it's still a good move. So in this case, it's not. Okay, so the next tactic is an interesting one. It's where tactical and positional overlap. Some people think the moves are either tactical or positional, but they can't be both at the same time. Not true. Here's one that is both. So let's check it out. Okay, so in this position here, standard line of perk defense or Pirtz, white plays this move here, allowing black this positional tactic. Okay, sacrificing the knight. Now white can play this move. It's not going to change the assessment. Or white can just take here and black can go here. And positions fairly equal. Black is equalized, and it tends to be what black wants to do in the opening anyways, equalize first. So, a tactic with positional overtones. Okay? Here's the next tactic. This is an interesting one, and this will be the last tactical motif I'll show before moving on to positional. this position here, white's in trouble. Even though he has done what he's supposed to do when he's a pawn down on a rook and pawn, and get in front of the king, get in front of the pawn, I mean. In this position, black is threatening checkmate. And so white is forced to play here, yes? But then black can play here, and white's lost. No way to save his rook or avoid checkmate. But, of course, white has a spectacular drawing concept, and that is the stalemate concept. So, it's a tactic, but it's not winning material, and it's not leading to checkmate. It's just saving the draw. So, obviously, if he takes, it's a stalemate. But, and if he goes here, then he has successfully chased the king off, you know, and there's really no way in at this point. White will just check from behind, and white has achieved the objective of being in front of the pawn, and there are no mate threats now. So with correct play, he'll hold the draw. Okay, so now we're going to move on to moves other than tactical, mainly positional, but are there any other types of moves? Do tactical moves or positional moves constitute all possible moves? And I would say no. I'm not sure how positional is actually defined generally, but let's take a look at some moves that may not be considered either tactical or positional. Okay, so what about a move like, what's the worst possible move for white on move 1? Maybe that. Okay, is that a positional move? It does not. If you look up here, the definitions I'm applying here for our purposes, I'm saying a tactic is usually a surprise move with a trick to win material or checkmate. Now we saw some examples of those, and we also saw some exceptions to this rule. That's why I have the word usually there. Positional move is a move or moves to win a square, or squares, or to prevent your opponent from winning squares. Okay, there's more to it than that, and we'll look at some of the other positional aspects of the game. But, so you might say, why would I want to win a square if there's nothing on it? I want to win pieces. What's the satisfaction in winning a square? I want to eat all this stuff and checkmate him. So yeah, that's why positional concepts are more difficult, because there's nothing tangible involved. Not yet. You have to be, it's a patient man's move. Okay, so what other types of moves are there? Well, there's this F3, which I call bad move. And lots of bad moves. I can't really call that a positional move. It does not win a square. Well, it kind of does. It attacks E4, but it ruins the king side. And other than that, it really has nothing going for it. H4 also is, we'll call them anti-positional moves. They're not really positional ideas. And again, just a bad move. Some good players can make any moves work, but yeah, bad move. Now, then you have what I call speculative or risky moves that have a point behind them. Like, for example, here, this is the Grob's opening. And I knew a very strong player that actually played this in tournaments. And there is a point to it. The idea is if what black plays here, attacking the pawn, white just ignores it. And if he takes the pawn, white has this move, and he can't take the pawn, right? Because the b7 pawn hangs, and ouch, and the rook would hang. So definitely not that. Okay, so let's say he plays pawn here or c6, either one. Then white gets to play here and attack, double attack. This is messy. Black is perfectly fine in this opening, but he's got to know what to do, and that's why white plays this G4 move in the beginning, to trick black and to maybe he'll play a bad move. There are some lines where white can take the D5 pawn and queen check and eat the bishop. Okay, so speculative move. I wouldn't call that a positional move either. And then there's what I call a waiting move. It's not a positional move. It's not improving one's position. It's not a tactical move. It's not a bad move. It's just a move to kill time. So what do we mean by that? I'll give you an example. Here's a classic position where black has set up a blockade. The rook prevents the king from approaching his king, and white is reduced to checks, mindless checks. Boom, boom. That's about all he can do, right? He can try anything he wants, but black can just move around behind his pawn. So that'll be a draw. So yet another type of move. So there are various types of moves besides tactical and positional. But in general, that's what you're striving for. Position where you can use a tactic, or otherwise just improve your position little by little. Okay, so I'm being told the video is too long for one session, so I'm going to cut it in half. So this is part 1. Part 2 will be available probably right next to part 1. Okay, so see you in part 2. We'll cover positional. We've just gotten through tactics mainly in part 1. Okay, see you in part 2.